Hello, everybody. Welcome to Startup Masters. I'm Nick Calavita. I'll be your host for today. And this is the event. This is the show that we actually go over startups, VCs, capital, things that people hear about but need to learn more about. And with that, we have two very exciting and dynamic personalities going to be involved. One is a person you're probably familiar with because he has the distinction of having one of the world's highest IQs. You've seen him a lot on the Pod TV network because we used to be the IBM TV network, where all the smart people hung out. I'm not sure where the dumb people hang out because I don't go there. With that, we're going to bring in Rick Rosner. Rick, welcome to the Startup Masters show, kind of one of our new shows for 2025 on the Pod TV network.
Right. Don't forget to mention that in addition to being smart, I'm full of nonsense. And it's hard to tell.
Full of nonsense, yeah, right. Yeah, well, the thing is there are a lot of dummies in this world, so I bring them a great book. It's called Chess for Dummies, but there's a lot of whole for dummies series. But we also have another smart guy that's going to be joining us. This person has a PhD in computer science and is a professor of computer science at Duke University. Also has done like 125 different startups. Let's bring in Dr. Salman Azar. Dr. Azar, welcome to the Startup Masters show.
Thank you.
Yes, okay. And since it's kind of your show because you're the startup king, you've done like 125 of these wonderful things. We'll turn it over to you as to what we're going to be discussing today and the show. So, and I'll run you a little banner below there. The Azimuth Opportunity Fund founder. Would that be a correct statement, Counselor?
Yeah, that would be a correct statement. And I have moved from the computer science department at Duke to the business school, Fuqua.
We're in the business school.
Yeah, so I'm in business school now. But I'm still deeply technical, and most of the work I do is really in the startup world, and in particular, making lots of money from investing in early stage companies. And then as I kind of held these companies and they became late stage, now I'm increasing my stake in the companies that have been doing well. It is kind of like poker. You start small, and then companies that are doing well, you increase your stake in that. And that's really where I spend most of my time these days. And the best way that I can share what I know is through success stories. And my first success story is actually the host of this show, who is Nick. And I want to kind of learn myself and also have the audience learn what he did in order to be successful. So Nick runs a pension fund that is based out of Utah. So Nick, maybe we can start with how you came up with that idea, how you started that. Just take us all the way to the beginning.
Okay, I'll take you all the way to the beginning. And the beginning is evolving out of desperation. Now, this goes back about 40 years ago. 40 years ago, people don't realize unemployment in the United States was over 10%. Okay, lawyers, I just graduated from law school. The unemployment was about the same. You had to wait for about a year to get a job. It was absolutely horrible. So I picked up a book, How to Start Your Own Practice Without Missing a Meal. Like, no kidding. So I read through that book. I was going, why don't I start my own practice? And a friend of mine, Professor Craig Hampton, he was Craig Hampton back then, goes, got to start your own practice and do estate planning in Florida. Okay, and I thought, well, I could get a job, and I had a job paying $8.50 an hour. Okay, that was it. That was the most you could get. That's if you could get a job. So we spent about a year in prep trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to sell estate planning using seminars in Florida? So I started my first seminar right after I got my bar ticket. Okay, that next week I made $3,650 that week. Yes. Okay, nothing helps people better than having success early on. But $3,650 for a week was much better than $8.50 an hour. I mean, do the math. And I finished the month with making $10,000 for the month. And you know what? Never looked back. Had a great year. Built the law firm up till we had 13 JD CPA, JD LLM tax attorneys doing estate planning in Fort Myers, Naples, Boca Raton, Palm Beach. Okay, and then what happened was this, real simple. I found the opportunities were in financial planning, not in doing legal documents. And so I switched over to work in financial planning. Ran across a partner, Stu Kirshner, and he said, "Hey, I do sell these insurance products, second dog products, wealthy people." So I went ahead and did that with him. First year, I made $798,000. I never made that type of money. That's like, even today, making $800,000 a year is pretty good. We both split $1.7 million and $1.5 million the next 2 years. In the third year, the insurance company we worked for, Mutual Benefit Life, you can look at the history, that went out of business. It went bankrupt. It's still the biggest failure of an insurance company. I lost close to $1 million in one day. So I had to go back and start again. And so I started back in doing estate planning. And then in 2001, they changed the rules. They said, well, we're not going to have an estate tax anymore. Since I was fired by these people in Congress. My clients called me up. We don't need an estate planning attorney. So I switched over to pensions in 2001 because I was looking around, what can I do? And I thought, well, pensions would be a good one. We got very lucky. We acquired contracts with Principal Financial, which is a big insurance company, a $500 billion company. We got an exclusive contract with them. We had One America. We had all these insurance contracts, and they would send us producers, 1,200 to 20,000 people would be selling our products for us. So then all of a sudden we're making over $1 million a year again. And then the recession came in 2008. See, if you live long enough, you're going to see these swings. 2008, we started shrinking. I had to lay off staff. Our income went down. It was horrible for everybody. And then my other partner came along and said, hey, it's bad for everybody. Why don't we continue this? Because my wife she was running a company. She wanted to retire. I said, okay. And so we continued it. Now, after 23 years, we're still in business, still kicking around, doing pension work all over the United States. And it works out really well. But to help the people out that are doing this, these are bootstraps. And I know, coming from the world of venture capitalists, everybody thinks somebody's going to, quote, give me money to start my business. Okay. Bootstrapping is a whole different cat. All the things I've done bootstrap, I've tried to raise money, but when I explain it to an investor, it's like they don't understand what you're talking about. Okay. Or what they want to do is own everything, or it was never a good relationship. So what's a bootstrap? Bootstrap is you basically take the money you've earned and you reinvest it back into your company. And you keep bootstrapping the company up, and you do not take venture money. And everybody thinks, well, I got to have venture money to be successful. No, what you need to be successful is to be willing to work 80 to 100 hours a week. And most people aren't willing to do it. And I have 777 clients. And every one of them I asked this question, Dr. Hassler said, do you work 9 to 5 or do you work 5 to 9? And they laugh. And they go, we all work 5 to 9. Every one of them will ask. So I go, how many hours do you work? You work 40 or 80? They go, oh, easily 80, maybe 100. Every one of them that are successful. So for the people who are listening and saying, well, I want to be an entrepreneur, okay, but I only want to work 40 hours a week, then you don't want to be an entrepreneur. I would suggest highly you go work for somebody else. And I've had a lot of employees, even today, that like the 9 to 5 jobs. That's fine. If you say, I'm willing to work 80 to 100 hours a week, I have no problem with that. I'm going to work Saturdays, Sundays, holy days of obligation, evenings, it doesn't matter, then you're an entrepreneur. But I wouldn't give a person time of day if they want to say, hey, I'm going to work 40 hours a week and you're going to be successful. And as they say in Pawn Stars, it ain't happening. And so, I think the most important part of the successful entrepreneur is their own built-in personality and their dogged determination to be successful come hell or high water. And my partners are all the same way. As a matter of fact, Stu Kirshner is my partner for many years. Guy was making $1.5 million, $1.7 million a year. He would work like that, no problem. He'd work anybody into the bone. You just have no idea how many hours they're willing to put in. And so I says, well, I have nothing to do. You always have something to do. You know what you have to do? You have to market and sell. You never have free time because marketing and selling go 24/7. Okay. So it is not built for everybody. I can tell you that, like I said, the minute somebody sits down and goes, I want to work 40 hours a week, I need somebody, quote, give me money, then I don't know if they're really a suitable candidate. I don't know what your experience is, but a lot of mine, they're not unicorns. A lot of my clients are, they're doctors, lawyers, architects, engineers, and people that just work their butts off. I have even plumbers that are successful. You'd have no idea where they come from. But the thing is, they all have that one thing in common. The other thing is, they've read the book, The Millionaire Next Door, and we've had Bill Denker on. We'll have him on this show too. I love that book. I read it in 1984 when it was Marketing to the Affluent. And what he said is they're frugal, they're tight. In other words, they hold every nickel and hold every dime. I made the mistake, honestly, I was not tight, because within a couple of years, I was making $800,000 a year. I owned 4 homes. I had $100,000 worth of cars. I took trips to Europe. I was spending $25,000 a month. And so was my business partner, because we made it too fast, too soon, too easy. And then everything collapsed. So everybody's going to be good. Everybody's different on the experience. But one common thread I've found in all successful entrepreneurs that I deal with is that. And that's a hard one to swallow, because most people aren't willing to come in the office at, as I said, 7 o'clock in the morning on Saturday and leave 7 o'clock Saturday night.
Yeah.
Most of them aren't willing to do like I did. Be in the office at 7 in the morning, greet your employees as they come in, and then shake their hands on the way out the door at 5 o'clock as you stay there till 9 or 10 every day. They just won't do it, Dr. Uzzer. And with that,
Well,
as I would say, it's not that, I'm out.
let's unpack there. So one of the things that I really liked about what you said, in addition to hard work, you also have setbacks, and how you react to setbacks makes a huge difference. In fact, the whole reason for you to start was the setback that you were. And by the way, I graduated in the same economy. It was hard to find a job. The interest rates were sky high. I think mortgages were close to 20%, if not. I still remember, you can get like 8% from a CD at that time. Mm-hmm. The interest rates were so high. So tell me a little bit about the setback part of it. Is that how you lost $1 million kind of overnight, right?
Well,
how did you feel about that? How do you react about it? How do you process that?
That's a good one. Actually, I remember the day that it occurred, because here's how I found out mutual benefits going out of business. We had a house in Boca Raton at the St. Andrews Country Club. If you ever look at it, it's the country club in Boca Raton. I mean, it's a very exclusive club. Memberships are like 150,000, and the homes are all over $1.5 million. I also had a home in Greenwich, Connecticut, which, by the way, is also a very affluent neighborhood. I was in my home in Greenwich when mutual benefit. They never told me that we're going out of business. We read it in the newspaper. My wife screamed and goes, mutual benefits closing their doors on Monday. And I sat there like, you got to be kidding me. We were processing over $1 million that month that just got vaporized. And I lost what they call a renewal stream of $80,000 a year for 10 years. I lost $800,000. So, I hate to say it. There's frankly nothing you can do about it. So except pick up the pieces and keep going. In other words, that's life. It's like in 2008 when the market went down 37%. There's not much you can do about it. So and you then have to take steps that are unfortunate. In our case, we ended up having to start terminating employees, something we didn't like to do, because they'd been with us for years, some of them almost 10 years. You have to tell them, no more job. And they, can't you borrow money to keep me around? No, I'm not going to do that. So I hate to say you do have to pick up the pieces and keep going. And setbacks are going to take place if you live long enough. You're going to get a setback. If you invest long enough, you're going to get losses. And so we were doing a plan for a doctor the other day, and he was saying, "Oh, I make 10% a year every year." Really? Wow. Without taking risk. And it doesn't matter what you invest in. Even MPLX, one of my favorite investments. And if you haven't looked at MPLX, you got to look at it. It's like a CD that pays 8 to 10% interest. Okay, it's a very well managed company. If all you want to do is earn 8 to 10%, but 10 to 12 on a risk free, forget it. And the reason why he was looking for that, he's just not old enough. He's like in his 30s. He hadn't lived long enough to see a crushing, brutal recession. Or like you did, Dr. Azar, the same year I did. I graduated in 1982 with my law degree, and then went into business in 1984 after I got my master's in law. Interest rates were 10%. Well, my first house, I bought at 10% interest. I was thrilled. I could get an interest rate that low because you're looking at 15, 20. And unemployment, they wouldn't even talk about it in the law industry because the regular industry was about 10, but law was climbing close to 50. There were no jobs. And people don't understand that because they didn't ever go through it. And in the last decade, people haven't had to go through it. So everything's great. Everything's going to go well. It'll all go well until it doesn't, so
My
I have to say. What?
Yeah. My first major setback was in the dot-com bust, and I lost a company, and it hurt really, really bad. It took me about 1 month to recover. And part of it is that the pain of actually letting go of people who are your friends. I had to let go of my brother, and then I had to let go of myself because I was too, not the right resource to maintain that company through that period. And it took me about a month after that to get out of the house. I couldn't do really anything. And just living through that and the dot-com and the 2008 has really, I feel that it has not just taught me lessons, but it has made me stronger, because when you rise up from that setback, you really feel strong.
Yeah, that's true, and that goes back to the personality of who you are. Also, it depends on who you associate with. And so I was very fortunate in my first venture in law practice, a guy named Frank Ciccarelli, we basically partnered with to do these seminars. They're still in business in Naples, Florida. You can go down there, good friends of mine. They only manage about $1 billion in assets. So they're not super huge, but they're not bad either. And then Stu also now has his own asset under management firm. And then Dennis Stearns, who's going to be on shortly, he manages about $2 billion in assets. And it's very important, as one of the president's U.S. Trust said, people like to do business with people like themselves, and you become who you hang out with. Now, back then when I was doing high-end estate planning, my buddies were the founder of Dunkin' Donuts, Bill Rosenberg. I was his personal attorney, the founder of the president of Bausch & Lomb, the president of Philip Morris, Frank Resnick, the founding family of Coca-Cola, who's still down there, the Candler family. Okay. In estate planning, you tend to hang around what I call the high net worth people. When you do pensions, you're hanging with a group a little lower than that. They're just medical doctors that are making $400,000 to $800,000 a year. But still, they're not bad. In other words, but you tend to gravitate to the people you hang out with. So one of the most important things for any startups is who's going to be on their board of directors, either officially or unofficially. None of these people are officially on, but these were the people that I could talk to all the time about business. We could have lunch together, find out what's going on. In other words, who are you associating with? Rick. I'm associated with Rick Roster. So maybe I'll become smart.
That my wife and I have suffered financially probably from being risk averse. My wife she hikes with her friends. They all own apartment buildings. And she's like, we don't own an apartment building. I'm like, yeah, because you never wanted to take the risk. And so, and also I've suffered by not having enough gumption. At times in my life, I've had that gumption that you talk about, the 60, 80 hour week, obsessive, but now no, I'm a lazy bastard.
And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. As you go through phases in life, I don't work near as hard as I used to. Matter of fact, I don't work at all hardly. I just collect dividends and interest. I'm happy with that. Okay. So,
and when it comes to risk, I have a relative who was in charge, who worked in risk mitigation for Lehman in 2007.
Right.
And he was buying as many credit default swaps as he could get his hands on. And credit default swaps, that's insurance against the collapse of the mortgage market. And he goes to his bosses and says, I bought a ton of these. It's not going to be enough. They told him, don't worry about it. And
Yeah.
so,
I mean, the thing is, the investment world is like that. In other words, it's a gamble, and the thing is, if you gamble and you win, then that's what Elon Musk did. He just gambled pretty heavy, and he won. If you win big. If you don't, you don't. And it's the same thing in startups. I'm telling you, the ones that did well, which were service-oriented businesses. I've had real estate deals and businesses that aren't that good because they're capital intensive. So again, I don't know your startups, Salman, but if they're in a capital intensive business, their odds drop tremendously for being successful. If they're in a service business, their odds are higher. But if they're a service business with a person that says, 80, 100 hours a week, no problem, buddy, I'm there, then they'll probably be successful. But if they think that somebody's going to, quote, give me money and tell me what to do, and I'm just going to do a regular job, forget it. They're not going to go anywhere. Yeah, right.
All right. Speaking of giving people money, Salman, can people invest in your fund? That's question one. Question two is, yesterday, Trump and a bunch of AI bigwigs announced Operation Stargate, a $500 billion set of investments in AI centers across the U.S. Is that a thing that's really, I mean, how does that affect your landscape?
Yeah, so the first thing is, yes, people can invest in our fund. And typically, coming back to the risk reward thing, we generally are looking for a target return rate of about 20%. And what's going to happen is that it's a higher risk than putting your money in a CD, and it's a higher risk than putting your money in public markets. And very simply, there is a risk reward profile that everyone has. The higher your risk, ability to sustain risk or tolerate risk, the higher your expected return is. Bonds are relatively safe. Stocks are a little bit less safe than bonds. So stocks over a period of time would give a higher return. So we manage that risk in two ways. One is that we don't put all our money in one basket. We diversify. And some of the companies, for example, that I've invested in have gone belly up, and I've lost all my money. But then there are companies that have gone acquired and have gone IPO, gotten acquired, and on one company I got 171x return. So just think about that I could have invested 170 other companies and it has made up for all of that. And I haven't invested in 170 companies, but essentially just that one company has given me my money back completely. So
do you have a link for people to go to? Because there are a lot of azimuths out there.
So our specialty is that we have a very curated deal flow from being in this industry for a long time. So I have been in the venture industry since 95, first as an entrepreneur for 12 years, and then after that as an investor and advisor. And then my two partners also have extensive exposure to deals. So the companies that we buy are companies that we have seen for like 10 to 12 years already. We have gone through the thick and thin, and we know what their potential is, what the capability of their people is. And the capability of people, by the way, is very underrated in this, because there are lots of like good-looking people that are not very capable that can make a very nice, slick presentation. But we do not rely on the presentation. We rely on actually seeing these people in the trenches and what they have done. So that is our advantage. We do not play with companies like SpaceX, for example, which is like you can go on sites like Forge and Hive and trade them if you want. You'll pay like a commission and so on, like 5% or something like that. You can buy them. But two reasons we don't do that. One is that whenever things become a household name, there are all these buyers that swarm the market, and that constrains the price to a much higher level, and you can't really buy at a discount, or you can't even buy at an attractive price. And the second reason is that we really don't add any value to that. In fact, you are investing blindly. So when we invest in a company, we are looking at their financials, we are doing our diligence. When you buy SpaceX online, you're basically buying just because it's Elon Musk or just because you heard the news about Starlink. So it's mostly not mostly, but exclusively the companies that we have known for awfully long time, and we would like to increase our holding. And what we do is basically then solicit funds from other people to get to invest in that.
Yeah, we'd certainly like to learn more about those funds because a lot of our clients want to diversify and not put everything in the boring bonds and CDs and things of that nature. They want to speculate a little bit and see what's going on. And funds like that can do really well. There is a story I do have because he's been on our show before, John Fanning, who was founder of Napster. Okay, what people don't know is Napster went bust. And John Fanning and Sean Fanning, his nephew, they lost everything. Okay, but he kept going and he invested in another company. He put $25,000 in this startup. And then the startup went public. And I had lunch with him in Las Vegas several years ago. He goes, Nick, I got a real problem. I said, what's that? I'm going to make $140 million. I said, what are you talking about? I was an original investor in Uber. I said, you're full of it. No. Okay. So then I read the schedule. I said, there's a schedule that comes out of the first investors and their high amount. And guess what? There was Fanning $144 million on a $25,000 investment in a company called Uber. And you know what, Dr. Zahir, he actually spent a lot of time poking around with different little companies to see which one would make. And then he hit what you would call the unicorn.
Yeah.
You just can't beat that, you know. Oh, we should get him on the show. He's a great guy. But he's very shy. As a matter of fact, we were the only ones who ever did an interview with John Fanning. You'll find nobody else. But I can work with him and maybe get him on. He'll tell his Uber story, which is pretty funny. Honestly, I didn't believe him until I read it in the newspaper, and there it was.
These stories are true, and there's a story about the person who painted Facebook wall on stock, and he became just for painting that wall, he became a multimillionaire when Facebook went IPO. But you know, that said, I mean, I just need to be very clear about that they are also, for every Facebook, there are other companies that didn't make it. And, you know, people like Mark Zuckerberg are a rarity because they are like one and done kind of people. Their first venture became very, very successful. But most of the entrepreneurs that I come across are people who are on their second or third or fourth venture. They have had success in the past. They had failures in the past. And we're really betting on what the expected outcome is in the end. And then
we're discussing it more, but we're at the half hour and hope people enjoyed the show. We're now broadcasting on Twitter, aka X, for 2025, in addition to Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Roku, and Amazon Fire. And we'll see you next time on Startup Masters. Bye-bye.